Okay, well, the first thing I'm going to do is just say a big welcome and a big thank you to everybody watching or listening around the world. And I'm going to say it's Liam Hartree back with you all today with episode 457 of the Simply Inspired podcast. And today I've got a very, very special guest for you guys, Mr. Justin Danforth, a coach, mentor, leader, motivational speaker, real estate agent, basically a man who just makes a positive difference in a lot of people's lives, helping them become the best version of themselves. Obviously, tremendous success in business, but more than that, a man who has turned his life around and made an incredible positive change. What this man has survived and overcome to become the person he is today is absolutely phenomenal. And we're going to be finding out more about that very soon, the reformation, the inner change, and everything that he's overcome. So, guys, stay tuned. And as always, there's going to be some great tips for you, the viewers, that you can use in your life. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired channel as well, just so I don't forget to say that for more content. And please give Justin a follow on his social media as well. You can find him just by searching Justin Danforth. We'll find more out about that later. But I am going to say, by the time you've heard this story, guys, you're definitely going to want to be following him. So, my brother, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning, my evening, for us to connect up, make this happen. Really appreciate that from my heart. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. It's absolutely my pleasure. I mean, I found you completely by chance online on YouTube where you commented under a video on a channel called Between the Lines. You put a comment underneath where they interviewed one of the guys there. And I just had a little look at your story and everything. I thought, wow, I got to get this guy on the show, and here we are. So, like I say, I appreciate it. Now, obviously, we'll talk about past, present, and future with your life, and we'll be taking a look kind of behind the scenes with your life. I don't always go back to the beginning with every guest, but today I think we will just go back in time a little bit and just touch on like where you come from, a little bit about what your background was like, and we'll just start there. We won't spend kind of ages on that topic, but just to give people a little bit of context on where you're originally from, and then we'll move forward from there, please. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So originally, I was born in Miami originally, but I was raised in Virginia. And so my background, in short, like you said, in brief, the typical, what I would consider typical, is just a street thug. I grew up. I had my mom and my stepfather. And my stepfather, I consider my dad because I don't know my real father. So I had what I would consider my mom and my dad in my life. But they struggled. Like for me growing up, my sister and I growing up, we didn't have anything. There were months and times where we didn't have no electricity, no water turned on. My sister and I always got moved around to different family members because my mom and dad just couldn't afford regular household bills and things of that nature, groceries and such. So they were there, they just weren't involved. They were too stressed and worried about trying to provide and just really could never make ends meet. So I turned to a life of the streets. I looked up to older guys who were involved in originally like stealing cars, still boosting car systems and rims and tires and things like that. Into as I got older, of course, it turned into selling drugs. Um, and so that's kind of like this snowball effect or domino effect where my life went from growing up, I was well mannered. My mom and dad instilled in us, mannerisms like just well manners. I still to this day I say yes ma'am and no ma'am, yes sir and no sir to people older than me. And you'll find it, funny these days nobody wants you to call them that. Nobody wants to be addressed ma'am or sir, but that's just how I was raised. So my mom and dad meant well. They just couldn't provide. They weren't the individuals I always needed in my life.
Absolutely. Okay, so that kind of sets the scene for the early part of your life. Okay, now obviously going deeper into that street life. I mean, it's a big part of your story, and when we do this today, I like to dwell very much on the positives, the change, the transformation, and not on the negatives. But obviously to give people like the idea of what you've been through. I mean, I came across it when like you served, I think 13 or 14 years all in all, maybe a little bit later. But I would like to find out a little bit more about the mentality in those early days because you mentioned there, that you wanted to kind of succeed in life. You kind of looked up to these older guys. It kind of escalated from there. But did you ever think that? that end would come, if you get what I mean. Did you ever think at that time in those early days that the street life would lead you into that, that situation, not such a good situation? Or did you kind of just think you'd go right to the top? Because if you get where I'm going with this, like I speak to a lot of guys who've been through these situations and they often think, other people will get caught, but they kind of think it'll never happen to them. And I'm fascinated by the whole mindset of when you're in that life, you want to find the things in life, but you're also looking over your shoulder and it's a very dangerous life. So can we go a little bit deeper into your mindset in those early years, if you get where I'm going with this, and how you really thought about things then versus now, basically?
Yeah, so the mindset, like I really never had no real direction. And so the mindset or the mentality is, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Well, I'm gonna get in a car accident today."
Hmm.
Right? You don't plan to get caught when you're doing illegal things. But the mindset is, it's always a possibility.
Hmm.
So for me, it was like the older people in my life, that was always prophesized like you're either gonna die or in prison. By the time it used to be when I was younger, it was like by the time you turn 16, you're gonna be dead or in prison. And then when I made it to 16, well, you're gonna be, by the time you turn 21, you're gonna be dead or in prison. So it's like the reality is it may happen, and it's not like the arrogance isn't it won't happen to me. It's I don't give a F. Like I don't care. I gotta take care of mine. I gotta do what I need to do. I got things I gotta take care of. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, no matter what the consequences are. And if I get caught, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And so that's kind of the mentality. So it's a bit of arrogance, and it's a reality that you're just willing to face and deal with the consequences.
Fair enough, fair enough. I mean, everything that we talk about today, I'm always thinking of it, from the audience's point of view of like what will benefit them. So some of these questions is also, I'm hoping it's going to have that relatability to those people who are in that situation now. There's a lot of young guns out there. They need to hear what you have to say. And I'm thinking of it from their point of view, and I'll get some more advice from you now in just a moment on that. But before we do, can you actually break down kind of the sentencing aspect and how much time you served? I mean, like I say, I don't like to dwell on the negative here, but coming through that to being the man you are today, that much time, I think it's amazing. And obviously we'll touch later on the inner transformation, and also I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the mindset switch and some other things. But before we do all of that, yeah, I mean, just the time itself, how long are we talking about in like different sentences?
Yeah. So when I first turned 21, I was arrested and charged with first degree murder. And so originally I was facing a life sentence without the possibility of parole. And so when it was time to come up for trial, 3 months prior to my trial, my lawyer came to me and he said, "We can't win this case." He said, "If
Mhm.
you go to trial, you will lose. You will get a life sentence and you'll never get out." Now, I don't know, like the viewers may know this, or you may know this, but there was a time where life was just 20, 25 years and you come up for parole. You could
Yeah.
you could do 20 years on a life sentence and get out. Well, when I caught my charge, when I was facing trial, the law had changed. Life meant there is no parole. You'll never get out. You'll die in prison. And so that's what my lawyer told me. He said, "If you lose, we will lose this case if you go to trial, and you will do a life sentence. You'll never get out of prison. You'll never see your daughter outside the prison walls again. Take this plea." And so he offered me a plea. The DA had offered me a plea for second degree murder.
Okay.
The first plea was 19 to 24 years. And I always look at you always look at the top number because that's the max you'll do if you end up maxing out. And so that's the reality. So I looked at him, I said, "Man, you're stupid. I'm not doing 25 years." I just rounded it up. It was 19 to 24. But in your mind, it's like that's 25 years of my life. I'm not doing 25 years. Get out of my face. I went back to my cell. About 2 weeks later, he comes back. He said, I got a good deal for you. The DA said, "Take this plea for second degree murder, 15 to 19 years." So again, I looked at him, I said, "I'm not doing 20 years." I said, "I'll tell you what, you get me a cap put on a dime, I'll do a dime, 10 years. Meaning a cap, meaning I won't do a day more than 10 years. I said, "Now sign a plea arrangement, a plea deal." So he leaves. He comes back a few weeks later. He said, "Man, I got the deal you asked for." And he breaks out the sentencing guidelines. Now I had prior record. I've been getting in trouble since the first time I ever got arrested was at 11 years old. So I had a small record that added points to the sentencing structure that I was now facing with this plea arrangement. And so he was like, with your points, the sentencing guidelines, you fall between here. You do 85% of your time because that's the law. You do 85%. You don't do 100% of your time. You get good time. And he had a calculator. And whatever he did, he punched in all these numbers real quick. He was slick with it. And he got the calculator to read 10.6. He said, Mr. Danforth, it's only 6 months more than you said you would do. Take this plea. I'm telling you, I can't win this case. You will lose. So I said, all right, where do I sign? So the plea it ended up being 17 years and 9 months max.
Yeah.
I get into prison. I go to before my case analyst, and she was like, "All right, baby, blah blah blah. Here's your sentence." I was like, "Yeah, I'll be out in 10 and a half years. I ain't worried about, I'm gonna get good time. I'll do 85%." Like I'm talking like I know everything. I'm just reiterating what the lawyer told me, right? And she looks at me. She says, "No, baby, you got to do 14 years and 4 months. That is the 85%." And it hit me. I was like, man, he played me. But it was the greatest thing that ever happened for me. And I know we'll talk about the transformation and things and the mindset and all of that later, but it was the greatest thing that ever happened for me.
Absolutely. I mean, wow. Like I said to you before, man, I'd heard things from your talks and bits and pieces, but it's also for me, it's the first time putting the whole story together as well, because obviously I prep and I make notes and everything, but there's only so much you can find out online. And when I sit down with people, I like it to flow. So, okay, that's the story. So I'm just taking it in. Now, one thing I got to ask you before we go into the transformation, we go headlong into that kind of things. I mean, first degree, second degree, okay, this guy that you killed. I mean, what was the situation? Was it like a gang related thing? Was it like a shootout? How much can you say about this without getting, because I don't want to, I'm always mindful when I speak to people who've been in these situations. Don't say anything that's going to put you in any extra trouble, please. But just in terms of like what you can say and anything like that, people will want to know, if we don't cover this, people will be asking me later saying, hey, what happened there? So can you just tell us a
Yeah.
story of like how it actually went down? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the time served and like I say, the changes within you basically. But yeah, just to contextualize this, what happened basically that sent you down for that?
Yeah, and so and my life's an open book. Everything is public information. My case was in the news, so
Mhm.
there's everything is there. Plus, like I said, everything's public information. You can look in the DOC whatever online, the websites and stuff like that, and see my numbers, my sentencing, and everything like that, my charges. So, what happened? Um, my little cousin was turning 16. Um, Now my family, real quick, like I said, we grew up, it was a rite of passage to drink alcohol, to smoke weed and things like that. Like that's how we grew up, getting high and drinking and stuff. So at 16 years old, my aunt calls me. She was like, "Hey, Charlie's birthday's coming up. I want to throw a big party out at Mark's house." Mark is the guy my aunt was seeing at the time. He lived in the country, so she wanted to throw the party out there because my aunt lived with neighbors where we couldn't get loud. So she said, "Can you get a DJ?" So I was like, "Yeah, I'll call my man up. I'll call my man Mo up. We'll meet you out there. Give me the address and the details, date and time." So it was my little cousin's birthday party. We go out there. DJ is set up. Everything's going good. Um, the kids during the daytime, the kids were riding four wheelers and swimming and stuff like that. Once it started getting dusk, all the kids got taken away, and it was just time for the adults. And when I say adults, that included my 16-year-old cousin, because now she's 16. But some uninvited guests showed up, and one of the guests started a fist fight with my oldest cousin, and my cousin was getting the best of him. So when he had him on the ground, punching on him, the dude pulled out a butterfly knife and started stabbing my cousin to death. So I pulled out a gun and shot him. He died. So that I mean that and cut and dry, like that's the case. I killed the guy that was stabbing my cousin to death. And
Okay.
that's what I went to prison for.
And one of the things with that, I mean, obviously, protecting your family, and everything. I mean, that's what you got to do. But straight after something like that, when it had gone that far, I'm curious to get like how you felt like in that moment, because the reason why I'm asking this, by the way, again, still not to dwell on negative, it's still like, for the youngsters out there, because we will get your advice down in a moment as well. It's one thing, like dealing and, doing some of the robberies and, having the image and having the respect and, all the things that come with it and the girls and all that stuff. And it's all cool. But then, crossing that line, taking a life, it's a whole nother thing. And obviously, it's not something a lot of guys can even do in the first place. It's not something, you get where I'm going with this. So I mean, immediately after, did it really sink in, like what you'd actually done, what had actually happened, the implications of this, or did that kind of come a little bit later, if you get what I mean?
That's a great question because no, reality didn't sit in. For the first 3 years of my incarceration, like I was still doing the same ignorant, dumb baby boy stuff that I had been doing my whole life up to that point. Like even in prison, I was still selling drugs, lusting and chasing after the female officers, gambling, like just all of the same dumb stuff. Like I didn't have a gun in there, but I walked around with I call it we call it a knife, a shift, a shank, whatever, but a piece of steel that'd go in a man's stomach and come out his back. Like that's the reality of it. And so the reality didn't even sink in for a good 3 years after my incarceration.
Okay, okay, yeah. I mean, this is something I kind of got the vibe, because obviously, yeah, being in there, the transformation is, I mean, wow. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, when did your mindset start to change? Because that's really what a lot of people want to know. That's really what we want to focus on. I mean, you're in there, you've got a lot of time to think about stuff and maybe reflect on stuff and everything. But different people, that happens in different times, different ways. I mean, for just to give you the context of why I'm asking this, I had a guy on here last year who did 12 years, all drug related stuff and everything, but it was quite late. I think it was like 7 or 8 years, or it was quite a long time in, where people came into the jail and they did this thing on the ripple effect. They brought like victims of crime in to speak to the audience, and then they actually threw like a stone in a bucket of water in front of them, and they said, look, this is a ripple effect. This is like what your actions do. It ripples out like this. And he was saying to me, like, shit, that was the first time I even realized like the effect this was happening on other people, this was having on people, if you get what I mean. So it's just a story there to give you the context. And I'm curious what that moment, maybe it was an overnight thing like this, maybe it was more of a slow process for you. I don't know. We're going to find out, and it's going to be very cool to find out. But in terms of that switch in your mind of like, okay, this life, what I've been doing is not for me anymore. I want something else from my life. I want to be a different person. Whatever form that took for you, I don't know. But I'd like to just get in here, the side that people don't really see, and find out what that transformative process was like for you, basically.
Yeah, so it's twofold, right? On one hand, you got in prison. In prison, your what you do every day is what's called your program, and
Hmm.
you got those who do time and those who the time does them, right? And what I mean is, in prison, you can sit there and play chess and cards all day, watch TV, and do nothing with your life. They feed you, they wash your clothes, and you can just continue to stay high, dumbed out on pills or drugs, whatever it is, and do nothing.
Hmm.
And then you have those who try to better themselves. So for me, and I didn't just wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm gonna change the trajectory of the rest of my life," right? But I remember I was sitting in my cell alone, and I had a knife in my hand, and I'm just like, man, I'm tired. I don't have the energy to keep living my life like this. And I had a couple guys that I had already talked to previously over the weeks prior to this day, this feeling that I had where I was just drained, tired of living like this, where they had already gotten out. They had done 10 plus years and came back within 12 months. And we already know the recidivism rate is so high, and that's always a topic of discussion. But and I asked him, like, what happened? Like, why are you back? Like, how did you come back here? Either you're hard headed or you like it here. Nobody likes it here. And of course, everybody has, what I come to find out after asking multiple people this over some time, it was like they had this unfulfilled, what I call unfulfilled street dreams. There was this void they were trying to fulfill, whether it was one more kilo or one more female's draws they had to get, one more high or drink they had to have. It was always something they would just chase and trying to fill a void. And what I discovered was, for me, I was so tired of living. I had already seen and done it all. Like nothing impressed me. None of that stuff impressed me. You couldn't come in there and tell me you could have been the biggest kingpin in the state. It would not impress me. What impressed me, what I yearned for, what was the void that I know that I needed to fill, was the domestic lifestyle. Because prior to prison, I never woke up next to the same woman every day. I never cut grass, paid bills. I didn't pay bills like legitimately. Everything was in my mom's name. I just give her the money. Here, take care of everything. So it's like I never had a domestic life. I don't take out the trash, and things like that, or help, whatever it is, like just a domestic lifestyle. So I was like, that's the life I want. I want a family. I want to get married and things like that. And so, I've read all, I make this point to say, like, I've read all of Nicholas Sparks' books, right, and seen all the movies. Like I was learning how to be a husband or a good father or off of sitcoms and novels, because my mom and dad never exemplified that. They were never affectionate. They never, hey, give us a hug and say I love you and things like that. We didn't have that type of relationship. And to this day, my wife and I, we work so well because neither one of us are real affectionate. Like if she needed that type of love or affection, we wouldn't work, because I'm still, I'm still, I guess, a little hard around the edges or whatever. But I learned from reading these books and watching sitcoms and things like that's the type of life I'm supposed to be living. And so when I was sitting in my cell and I was just so tired, I realized, I was like, I looked in the mirror, and one of the hardest pills to swallow, one of the greatest pains a person can ever face, is the acceptance that where you're at in life is because of the choices you made. And it hit me. I was like, man, I'm sitting in prison. I still got a decade plus left to serve. Fighting and fearing for my life almost every day I wake up because of the decisions I made. But the flip side and the good news of that, and I realized all at the same time, simultaneously, while I'm looking at my reflection, one of the greatest joys you can ever feel is knowing that you can change your entire life by changing the decisions you make. And so it started right then. I had to answer those two questions. What kind of man do I want to become? And what kind of life do I want to lead? And so I started delving into personal growth and development. So now I'm not reading romance novels. I got what I needed from there. I'm reading personal growth and development. I'm reading entrepreneur business and marketing and advertising and things like that. Cultivating a whole different, I had this vision, right? Most people have a vision of who they should be or want to be, right? Or at least they should. And so every morning I started getting up at 3 o'clock. I developed my program. Like I said, in prison, you got what you do every day is your program. That's what it's called. It's your program. My program was get up at 3 o'clock every morning, start working out, and read personal growth and development, and then apply that every single day relentlessly.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, that really shows people what's possible in life, and you can make a change. It's never too late to make a change. I love the message. Big respect on making a change because, like you say, I mean, a lot of guys go through there and they don't, or they come back, and yeah, I mean, you do see a lot of that. You do see a lot of that where where I'm from. It's the same. Guys they keep coming back and they don't learn. And you think like. What are you doing? I mean, you've got more to offer the world than this. So the fact that you made a change and you started steering in a different direction, I think is absolutely incredible. And I'd like to take this opportunity as well to go deeper into some of the advice that you would share with people who are basically in the situation you were once in, because we started touching on this very nicely with the personal growth and development, changing your mindset, changing changing your heart in a lot of ways as well. I mean, that's another thing, not to sound corny or anything like that, but when you were saying about like starting to bring, a little bit more of love, a little bit more of some, some of the gentler things. I know there's only so much in that you can allow in your life at that time. So you've got to survive. But at the same time, like when you're saying about the romance, I love that. So that kind of stuff leads me very nicely into like what you would say to people in that situation, going into that situation, you're heading in that direction. Maybe they've come out, maybe they've done a bit of time, they come out, they don't know what to do with themselves. There's different kind of layers to this, and it's a pretty big question. But if we were able to kind of distill down, two, three, four things that would be like essential advice for those people who are struggling from you, what would some of those things be?
So, like you said, there's a few different things, and it's always relative to the individual. But
Absolutely.
the first thing would be, who do you want to become? Like, really, really, really reflect. What kind of life do you want to lead? Because everything's gonna start with right there, right? That. So to answer those becomes, you get your purpose out of answering those two questions.
Mhm.
You get your purpose. And now we all know, just finding your purpose in life ain't enough, right? You have to stick with it when times get tough, because life is gonna knock you down. There's obstacles, a lot of them. But what you do when you face them obstacles defines who you are. So now you have to build resilience, because now you've stated, this is the vision I have for myself. This is what the goal that I'm working towards. Here's my purpose in life. Now, when you face all these obstacles, all the naysayers, all the haters, all the circumstances and situations that come your way, you've got to have resilience. And with resilience comes, the foundation of resilience would be integrity, doing what you say you're going to do no matter what comes your way, right? And so in prison, that's a real big thing, right? Actions speak louder than words could ever, right? So a lot of us, I'll give you an example real fast. A lot of us, well, I give you my word, Liam, that you call me up and you say, "Hey, look, I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Um, I can't catch an. I'm not gonna catch an Uber. Let's just say for whatever reason you can't get the Uber. Just can you come get me, man? I need to be at the doctor's appointment at 3 o'clock." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got you." You're like, "Look, I can't be late. This is a very serious appointment. I need to be there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got you, Liam. That's my word,
Yeah.
man. I will drop everything. I could find out as soon as we hang up, oh, I got an appointment myself, or my kid got to be picked up at school at 3 o'clock. I will leave my kid at school to make sure I fulfill my word to you. But guess what we don't do when we tell ourselves we're going to do something? I'm going to tell myself I'm going to start getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to go to the gym at 4. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, I start negotiating with that. See, we don't keep our word to ourselves. We'll keep our word to other people, but we won't keep our word to ourselves. So integrity is a real big part of holding firm to your vision, because you've already said, you told yourself, this is the vision I had. This is the life I want to live. This is the man I want to become. But the second Joe Blow comes over here, those whispers, that negative self-talk seeps in, all that goes out the window. You ain't keeping your word to yourself. So, you know, integrity is a real big deal. And then just having ownership. Like, I never blame anybody for what I did and where I ended up in life. But what I discovered was ownership ain't just about admitting your faults. It's about owning your future, right? It's about owning your growth. So now, for me, it was taking ownership of who I'm going to become, the ownership of the choices I'm going to make from this day forth to step into that vision. And I used to call it like building my Frankenstein or my avatar. Every day I wake up, I'm taking out the best qualities and traits, because I know what I've been through. I survived certain situations that people don't walk out alive.
Yeah.
So I know I can handle anything that comes my way. So I take those good qualities, that confidence, that self esteem, and apply that to knowing I can do the right thing. I can make the right choice and can't nobody stop me. And even and most people going through the situations, the young men and women from them streets, in them streets, going to prison, there's always the older heads, always the old heads that will try to give you sound advice and help steer you in a different direction. See,
Yeah,
that's what I also found out in prison. When I started to change, my mindset started to change for the better. I started hanging around the old heads who were already making a difference. They had already done 20 plus years. They're doing a life sentence without parole. And they'll easily tell you, this ain't the life you want, young buck. This
mm,
ain't the life you want, young blood. That's what they'll tell you. Like, this ain't it. You got a chance to get out of this. You got a chance. You're young enough to make a difference in your life. So there's always the positive influence, even in the worst of situations, that you can surround yourself with. It's all a matter of, like I said, the integrity, the ownership, building the resilience, and sticking with it. And then on top of that, and I'll say this last, is just like acting now, not waiting. Not waiting till, well, as soon as I'm gonna wait till, all right, for example, most dudes in prison will wait till they're 90 days out from release to start working out.
yeah,
Why they don't even start? You don't start nine. You get ready to get out. Now you want to get in shape. Now you want to work out. You've been in here 10 years. No, now, like now, no matter what, drop everything. If you're making a decision to do the right thing, to become better, it starts now, not tomorrow. And every day you wait is a day you don't get back.
absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Powerful. I mean, very, very powerful advice there, my friend. And I think it's awesome because I'll tell you something else before we go any further. Part of the reason I love to kind of hit this message home so much as well is actually a very obvious thing, but it's kind of so obvious people don't think of it. Is the life you were living? It is glamorized now. It is idealized. It is oftentimes, unfortunately, put on a pedestal of like it's cool to be this way and everything. So the other thing I love about like what we're doing today as well is we're deconstructing that image, breaking it down of like, it doesn't lead you where you want to be. Like what you were saying, those guys, life without parole. I mean, that's some serious shit. I mean, I'm not being funny, but like where I come from in the UK, you do get life sentences sometimes, but most people get out even for really, really bad stuff. I don't necessarily agree with that entirely either. But like when when you're in the USA and they actually throw the book at people, there's two sides to that because you do get some very evil people who are way beyond change and okay, but then at the same time you get some people where they will make a change and you kind of think, well, okay, they're never going to get out 20 years from now. He's going to be a different guy. I don't know if that's fair. So I can see both sides of the coin. But anyway, not to go off on a tangent there, going back to what I was saying, de-glamorizing the streets, basically, if that's a word, taking the allure, the fascination and all this stuff out of it, I think is so valuable. So that's not really a question. I'm just saying I respect that deeply because that's also to me a very important part of what you represent and to hit that home, one other thing, and then I'm going to come in a minute to like when you're getting closer to release, because obviously we need to talk about your life afterwards as well, your life now. One final thing about that, when you're in there, looking over your shoulder, surviving, you were saying there about, carrying the shank and all of this stuff before the change. What are some of the worst things that basically you saw in there, or like what's some of the stuff, when something goes down? And there is like a violent incident and there is this kind of stuff on that side of the life. Reason I'm asking this, partly an instinct because I wasn't planning on asking it, so I kind of follow the instincts, but it's also really just to hit it home because if there's some people out there who are still a bit hard-headed, they still think they're tough and they still think, man, I could do 40 years. I mean, I'm going to do that and I'll show you. I just want to kind of hit home. No, you don't want to do that because of then some of the other things you see as well, because it's not all smooth sailing by any means. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that? And the reason I'm asking, would you mind? It might not be the easiest thing to talk about if it's something really terrible, but at the same time, I would appreciate it for the reason of driving that message home to people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a difference between feeling like you're capable of doing something and being able to do something and actually seeing things get done. And when I say things get done, I'm talking about I've seen officers, female officers get stabbed, like just stabbed up. I'm talking about poked. Not just like it like oh little one little stab and then the scene changes. Like in a movie. No, no. I'm talking about stabbed up, kicked, beaten. I've seen them get punched. And these are females.
Yeah.
Dude officers get it too, but I mean, and then of course inmate on inmate to inmate violence is the same thing. Um, you got there's certain camps where you got levels, right? So you got like maximum, super max, max, and then a medium custody, a minimum custody. And you think once you get to like the medium custody, you get a little more privileges. Like you get actual dumbbells to work out with. You get weights to work out with and things like that. And let me clarify this. I did my time on state because people listen to this. There's a difference between federal time and state time. My time was on state, so I can't speak for how it goes down in the federal prison when it comes to like the weight piles and things like that. But like those dumbbells will crush your whole face in. I've seen that. Like just somebody getting smacked with a dumbbell, man. It's not cool, man, because like I said, it's one thing when you know you're able to do that, knowing that you're able to do that, you don't typically do that for no reason. It's going to be out of survival or somebody threaten uh your reputation or you disrespected you. It's a reason for it. But when you see somebody else doing that or having it done to them, it's like, man, I gotta get out of here, man. Because you now the reality is it can happen to you at any given moment,
Absolutely. Yeah.
or you could be the one that has to do it. And guess what? Like I said, you can be very capable and willing, and that's different. But what happens when you are willing and you have to do that? Now you're facing a life sentence or extending your time.
Mm.
If you had a release date, that just got extended. You see what I'm saying? And it's like it's downhill, man. It's not pretty. It's not pretty.
I think that hits it home, for people not getting the message. I mean, it's brutal, but it does get the message across. Now, the other thing we need to talk about here is your life since this, because one of the things is obviously this from my side kind of has two sides, because when you're coming up on release, that's one thing. But then when you actually get back out into the world and everything and you're actually living again, after that much time, the world has changed, things are different, there's a different structure, there's things you've got to take care of on your own. There's all different kinds of stuff. And I'd imagine there's probably weirdly, pros and cons as well. I mean, like what you were saying earlier, you get out, you've got to like wash your own clothes and you've got to, do all these things yourself. But at the same time, freedom, I mean, is an amazing thing. Most people take it for granted. So I can imagine there's kind of two sides. But in terms of like getting back out, adapting into the world, and then not only adapting and just surviving but actually thriving, which is what you've done, because there's like, setting up your own business, passing on the messages that you've learned as well, the lessons I should say that you've learned, and spreading that message, that kind of thing of not just saying, well, okay, I've got this for me, but I'm actually going to pass this on to people who need it. Because like when I'm looking at your Instagram, I mean, there's so many things with the motivational speaking, the real estate, the accountability, the coaching. I mean, you're thriving, man. This is absolutely incredible. So I'd like to talk about that process, if you get what I mean. Of like, there's a few different things I've mentioned there, but that process of adapting to the world and then saying, okay, I'm gonna really level up here and make something of myself, which is what you've done. So yeah, basically that process in your own words, please. Thank you.
Okay, so So when I decided that I wanted to have a domestic lifestyle and do things differently and the life I wanted to lead, the mindset shift was prison is not my punishment. Prison is my preparation. So
Mm-hmm.
I started preparing. So 2 years, so I went into prison with the eighth grade education. So I first got my GED. And back then they had college courses you could take. I got a 2 year associate's degree in electronical engineering technology. I can literally say I'm an engineer, even though that's not what I do. But I said all that to say I was preparing.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years prior to my release, I made it to minimum custody. Under 5 years, you got to be under 5 years to get there. And I made it a minimum custody where you could go out into society with an approved community volunteer. So volunteers would come and pick guys up. You could go out twice a week for 6 hours at a time. And a lot of guys, they would just go to like a restaurant or a church, things like that. AA, NA meetings, NA and AA meetings out in the society. So they do that to try to help people get acclimated. For me, I started scheduling to speak at Boys and Girls to speak to at-risk youth. So it was like Boys and Girls Club. The YMCA had an after-school program. I went to some churches to speak. They had a program, and um, and then I went to this. It was an organization, a nonprofit organization who is support for people who have loved ones that's incarcerated. Like it's just a group of people that get together, and they have people that's incarcerated, so they're there for each other. Because if I had knee surgery and you had knee surgery, we could talk all day long. But if
Yeah.
I had knee surgery and you didn't, then you don't want to hear me talk about all the technicalities or whatever to do with knee surgery, right? So these people had that in common. They had loved ones that was in prison, whether it was a nephew, a brother, son, daughter, whatever. So I went to speak at the organization at one of their meetings. And while I'm speaking, I still had 2 years left. While I was speaking, I said, I need a couch. You guys are here to support and try to see how you can best help us coming home, getting out of prison. Your loved ones that may be getting released. I need a couch. And they all chuckled. They laughed. And I was like, that wasn't a punchline. That wasn't meant to be funny. I'm serious. So they kind of like got all quiet or whatever. I finished speaking, and afterwards, like you get to walk around and network with people. And somebody said, "What do you mean you need a couch?" I said, "I don't understand why that's so hard for you to understand. I've been gone. At the time, it had been 12 plus years. I still got 2 years left. Would you rather me do what all these knuckleheads are doing and wait till the day I get out to ask everybody for a handout for a bunch of stuff can't nobody afford? Because where I come from, nobody can afford everything.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't have a couch to sit on. They looked and it was like, how much time you got left? I said, 2 years. They said, by the time you get out, you'll have a couch. So what I did from that point on, I took numbers and addresses. Back then, we didn't, on state, we didn't have email because I know they in the feds, they had email. Now they have email on state. They got tablets and everything. Now they didn't have that when I was doing my time. I've been home 8 years. And all of that changed just in the past 2 years. But anyways, so I got addresses and numbers. And I would write, said, hey, you always said if I needed anything to reach out. If you don't mind, maybe Friday if you get paid, could you go get me a pack of boxers? Nothing fancy. I don't need designer clothes. Just go to Walmart and get me a pack of boxers. Here's my size. I'd write somebody else. Hey, if you don't mind when you get paid, would you mind get me a pack of tank tops? I'd write somebody else. Would you mind? So as time went on, me doing this, that person that I asked for the boxers, 6 months might have been gone by. I said, hey, I appreciate the boxers. That was all love. If you don't mind, I'm gonna be getting out. My release date is in the fall. I'm gonna need a jacket. Nothing expensive. Could you just go to Walmart and get me something warm? Also, I'm gonna need a pair of jeans to work in and a pair of jeans to kind of go, to go out in public in, something nice or neat, but nothing expensive, nothing fancy. So As time's going on, I had a whole wardrobe, including a winter hat, a belt. I even wrote, I said, hey, if you don't mind when you get paid Friday, could you go get me a belt? Now, these were different people. I didn't hit the same person up until after time had lapsed because anybody, man, I don't know how it is there in the UK, but out here, you pull up to a stoplight and there's a panhandler with a sign on his chest. I'm a veteran. I'm homeless. Can you help? And most people, you'll see them in front of you. You're sitting at a stoplight in cars, and people are rolling the window down. He's going up the windows, getting money. People don't mind a couple dollars here or there. And that's what I figured out. I was like, they really want to help. I can't ask the same person for $500 worth of clothes or furniture. So I built a whole wardrobe. I um I found somebody I found somebody to rent me a place. I know we're probably getting short on time. So I had to live in the state that I was doing my time. I didn't have family or friends where I was doing my time at. So what I did was I found a place for rent, and I needed first and last month's rent. So what I did was I drew up a flyer and I itemized cell phone bill, gas for about 2 weeks. Because in my mind, anywhere I get a job, they're gonna hold back a week. So I won't get a paycheck for 2 weeks. They only let me out of prison with $40. That's a gate check.
Yeah.
So gas money, deposits for electric, water, and all of that. I had my mom call these companies and see how much is a deposit, things like that. So I got an itemized list, and I got it all itemized. It all came up to $3,300. I sent out 33 letters asking for $100, and I raised that. So
Wow.
prior to getting out, I had my mom and my sister go to the place, get the keys, get a deposit, go in there and clean the place. I had already had non-perishable food items because some of the same people asked for a pack of boxers. Hey, would you mind getting me a 5 pound bag of white rice? Could you
Yeah.
go get me salt and pepper? Could you go get me a bottle of garlic? Because in my mind, I don't have any of this stuff, and that was the problem with everybody coming back to prison. They didn't forethink the stuff that they don't have anymore.
Mm.
So I needed to walk into that place that I was going to be renting like I had been living there my whole life. So
Yeah.
I had the beds made. Scents plugged in the walls. It smelled good, and every shower curtain hanging, like every detail I could think of, I had it all already done. And that's what happened. When I left the prison, I went straight to DMV, took the test, got my license because I went out on CV pass 30 days prior to my release date and took the written and the eye exam. Here, there's only 3 tests for DMV. It's a written, eye, and the driving part. I couldn't take the driving part because I was an inmate, but the
Yeah.
written and the eye exam was good for 45 days or 30 or 45 days. So I went on the CV pass while I was still in prison at DMV. So the day of my release, I had scheduled to go take the driving part. So I went straight from prison to DMV and got my driver's license right on the spot. Took the driving part, passed it, got my license. Left
Wow.
there, went to the electric company, got my electricity turned on. Left there, went to the water company, went to the internet place, like did all of that. See, because I figured out how a lot of people that kept coming back, guess what they were doing? The homeboys was picking them up. They're going to the club. They're going to the hotel. Or they're going. First thing they want to do is go have sex. Like, sex comes. Like that's a given. That's just like anything. Like stuff like that. I didn't need none of that. That stuff was a given. So
Yeah.
I was prepared. So when I did walk into that house, it was like I had already been living there. I had to envisioning it so vividly. Nothing had changed. The only thing I had to adjust to was social media.
Yeah, I mean that must have been a crazy change. I was thinking that actually, but no, I mean there's some incredible lessons in there. Preparing, thinking ahead, visualizing. That is quite a behind the scenes kind of peek about the process, man. And there's a few things there I didn't realize. So all I gotta say is big respect on that for thinking ahead. What you're saying there about the driving. test and everything. It's amazing. Last couple of things, we'll go like a tiny bit over the time that I said, but one of the last things I want to ask you, which I think is really important, since you've been out, 8 years, I think you said, right? You've done all these things, the real estate, motivational speaking, being up there on stage, building a social media following and coaching people and just all of this stuff. So I was thinking, well, okay, how do we break that down? You know what? I think the best way to do it is to ask you what some of your proudest moments are of the life you've built post prison. And again, it's probably quite a big question because you've got like different sides of it. You've got like the financial side, you've got like the positive impact side, helping the youth, helping people in general. You've got like adapting to change, like what you're saying there, like social media, I mean, something that's totally new. There's all different things. But different peer group, who you associate with now is like different than that. That's another really important lesson you've touched on. Who you spend your time with is basically who you become. So there's all these different things. But basically, if you had to pick like a handful of them of like what your proudest moments are in the life that you've built since then, what would a few of those be, please? That's what I'd like to know, basically.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Some of the proudest moments were being home to see um, my daughter, not only to see my daughter, but as she got older, she had a child of her own. So I have a granddaughter now. Being able to spend time with my granddaughter, because I missed that with my own daughter. And I never tried to make that up. And that's, like I said, that's something else. We could talk about it at a different time. But also, from the businesses that I started and established, I built my own home, brand new construction home that I custom built, had custom built for my wife and I, right in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Where at the time we were living in Virginia Beach, I started a real estate investing company. So in your introduction, you said I was a real estate agent. I'm not an agent. I'm just a real estate investor. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, and I started that off of watching YouTube videos, simply watching YouTube videos, and I learned. And I went to a seminar. I put $5,000 on a credit card to go pay for this seminar. It was a weekend seminar. I went there, and during the seminar, I just took everything in, my wife and we started right then. And from there, it took off. So that's some of my proudest moments is being able to build the house that I now live in. I drive a brand new truck. Over the past, since I've been out, 2 years after my release, I bought a brand new vehicle. Excuse me. And this isn't a flex, right? But it's something I'm proud of with
Mhm.
legit legal money that I made off of the companies that I've started and that I run and own and operate and things of that nature. But so those are some of my proudest moments of just being, and even the simplest things, Leah, man, it makes me feel good to just go open the refrigerator and grab a gallon of milk and pour me a glass of milk when I want to. I ain't gotta wait for them to call chow call, or I ain't gotta wait for breakfast to get some milk if I want some milk.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's always about, like, so many people out here complain about the most mundane things, just everything. They complain about everything, and it's like I get to do all of this stuff. I get to pay bills. Like, I don't complain about paying bills. I get to pay bills. Interest rates going up. I get to pay high interest rates because there was a time where I didn't get to do any of this stuff. And I know a lot of dudes, good, solid dudes, that don't get to do any of this stuff. I got brothers calling me from prison who's been locked up 30 years. They call me every couple of days, and all I can do is just be there for them over the phone. They don't get to do any of this stuff. So
Yeah.
those are my proudest moments, man. It's just really just being free, being able to do all of the things that most people don't even want to do,
Yeah. I love
even
that.
sitting in traffic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
even sitting in traffic, I mean that puts it in perspective, the glass of milk thing and everything you were saying there, gratitude, man. I mean, I thought that might come up because I was very curious to hear your perspective on the day-to-day things, that's why I said earlier, just, freedom itself, like you say, we take it for granted. But I think that is absolutely incredible. Also, though, what you said about your daughter as well, I mean, making a change there and everything like that. I picked up on that because now, granddaughter, congratulations, by the way. I mean, family is, an amazing blessing. And I got to say, breaking the generational curses, that kind of thing. In other words, now, like, you can be positive influence on your daughter, your granddaughter. You can teach them the things you've learned from your experience, and that kind of ripples out from there. I mean, looking at that, like you'll be like a great grandfather, whatever, in your lifetime probably as well. So if you think about like how it spans down the generations, I think that making that difference, because that's the other thing, is people get caught up in a generational cycle. What they grow up with, they repeat, they pass that on to to their children, their children's children, and so on. And it takes someone to break the chain there and say, okay, we're not going to repeat those patterns. It's not really a question, but I'm just saying that I think the fact that you're doing that now, I've got the utmost respect for that. And what you said there about your daughter, by the way, like missing some of that time must be like a terrible thing. But then how you're like making up for it now, I love that. So want to give that a mention. Something else came into my head as well. Last thing, and I'm going to close out with this. When you're on stage speaking, particularly with that side, I just want to touch on this, and you're speaking and you're passing on, how does it feel in that moment when you were sitting in a prison cell once for many years, and now you're on stage in front of people who want to hear your story, or you're out there speaking, even doing broadcasts online or anything. I mean, if you look at this, I'm from the UK. I'm in Cyprus now, by the way. I'm in in Europe next to Greece. But anyway, but like around the world, basically, it's thousands of miles. But I've heard your story. People hearing your story all around the world. That's why I say that. How does that kind of thing feel from where you come from to that kind of success? Because you touched on like the financial success there, but I feel you're being very humble about the positive impact success, and the positive impact that you have on a lot of people. You teach them, hey, they got to put in the work. I know that, but you're passing on the knowledge. So I'd like to just go a little bit deeper into that, and then we'll probably close out from there. But I really, really think that deserves a mention.
Thank you. It's how it feels. It's just it's surreal.
Mm.
It's very surreal. It that became my purpose in life. Um, is to become the best man I could be all around, not just in speech, but in action. Not just in action, but emotionally. Like how I feel about certain things, right? Not just emotionally, but financially. So all the way around, spiritually, mentally, physically, you know, um, to know, to be able to do all of that and inspire somebody, it's just it's surreal, man. Like I can't even put it into words, honestly. Um, but that's what it became. That's what my purpose became, was to be able to look in the mirror and inspire myself, to motivate myself. Like I don't look up to anybody. I don't have to watch motivational YouTube videos to get going or to feel it. Like I can look in the mirror because I know the transformation that I've made, and to be able to pass that on to somebody else and hopefully make a difference in their life. Man, there's no words to, I can't find words to describe that other than, like I said, it's surreal.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I love that. Going all the way back to what I said at the beginning or some point earlier on about the ripple effect and about, that kind of difference. Because obviously, then, you make a difference in somebody's life, then the way they behave, the way they are with their family, the way they are with their business, the way they are in their community, changes. Certainly, sometimes, other times in major ways, but then it goes out and out and out, to people that like you haven't even met, but because you've met them, it gets passed on. And I think that is like one of the highest things that we can aspire to in life, one of the highest aims, is making a difference. It's also the same reason why I do these talks as well, is that kind of difference, because with the people listening to this, I hope that they connect with you, I hope that they reach out to you and all of that kind of thing. But even if they don't, even if they just listen to it and take it in that way, because some people will, some people won't, it's still of immense value. And all I want to say is just keep doing that. And I hope and I pray that it gets even bigger for you, and the talks and the things you're doing grow even more, and the coaching, and everything that you're doing continues to grow. So I'm going to say that. And last thing I'm also going to say to our audience as well, like I said at the beginning, guys, please follow this man, plug into the journey, follow Justin on social media. I follow him on Instagram, Justin Danforth. But give yourself a little plug there, my friend, of where people can reach out, not only to follow, but because, you're very like accessible as well. Like I reached out to you. I mean, I saw you on YouTube, but then I reached out on Instagram, and you've got the time of day for people as well. And the way you carry yourself, like that's very positive. So, with that being said, how can people connect with you basically?
Yeah, like basically Instagram. I'm on Facebook too, so Instagram or Facebook. Justin Danforth on Instagram. I think it's underscore Justin Danforth. Like I don't even know my Instagram, whatever you call it, right? But
Yeah.
you can find me. I'm Justin Danforth. There's probably only maybe two other ones that might pop up, and they don't look like me. So yeah, Instagram, Facebook, reach out to me, DM me. I'm always accessible. I make time for anybody. It ain't about no monetary gain or value. If I can help, I do have coaching and programs. Yes, that's in and of itself. But I understand like everybody struggles with something. So
Mhm.
know that you're never alone. And if you just need somebody that you feel like you can relate to, if you can relate to me or my story or my past or my experiences, or want to figure out how to relate in your own life, I'm open, man. I'm an open book.
Absolutely. I love that. Absolutely love it. And I'm just going to say as well, guys, this is the Instagram, if you can see that there as well, underscore Justin Danforth. So, yeah, give him a follow. And my friend, I mean, look, when I do these talks, even in an hour, I know that in many ways we only scratch the surface in a lot of ways. I mean, there's so much more to your life. There's so much more that makes you tick and makes you the man you are today. But at the same time, I'm very happy because, we've got, like I said, the transformational message, the man you were, the man you are. Obviously, the future is very bright as well. I mean, that's what I was saying. I'm sure you're going to do a whole lot more from here. But I'm happy with that because I always say the last thing I'm going to close out with. I always say if we encourage even one more person to kind of think differently, make some different decisions, then we've done our work. Now I know it will be more than that because I'm going to promote this everywhere I can. But the right people at the right time when they're ready to hear it, they will connect with it, and it will make a positive change. Obviously, I'll send this to you when it's released as well. So if you've got any uses for it, feel free. But for now, I just want to wish you a great day ahead, great week ahead as well. We're doing this obviously on a Sunday. Best wishes to your family and just big thank you, not only for your time, but also just for being such an open book about like, the highs and lows of your life because we've been talking about like some of the successes, but some of the hard times as well. And it takes a lot of courage to speak about that. I know it's what you do and I respect that, but I just want to say I respect that because, speaking about like the hard times as well. Takes courage, man. So thank you for doing that to help people. And yeah, been an awesome interview. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. You have a great day. You take care of yourself. Thank you again, my friend. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.